You're listening to Two Beers Until Phronesis, a philosophy podcast for students, graduates, and anyone else interested in ideas. Alongside regular guests and friends, we discuss some of life's big questions over a few beers. Enjoy. Okay, conspiracy theories, guys. Does anyone have a favourite conspiracy theory? What's your favourite, Joe?
The one that makes me laugh is that Australia doesn't exist.
What's that one? Okay, what's that one?
Well, is what it says on the tin.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
So they explain it by like, you've never been to Australia, the plane just goes somewhere else. And like anyone you've met from Australia, they're just paid by the government.
What? Right.
That kind of thing. But I think the scale of it is what gets me. It's like, that's quite a claim.
That's like, yeah, it's like Truman Show for everyone.
For a country.
Yeah.
I think the other one similar was that in the middle of Australia there's a massive lake.
Right.
Like the middle of Australia isn't the outback; it's just like another ocean.
What?
It's the same thing. Like you've never really been there. The plane goes somewhere else, or whatever.
Yeah.
So you can't prove it.
Well, that's what all conspiracy theories
are
based on the fact that if you're not an expert in it, like I could argue with an anti-vaxxer, but I'm not a medical expert, so I can't really say with conviction that vaccines are a good thing. I can't explain how they work, in detail, and that's what's so annoying about arguing with these people. Is that they shift the kind of burden of proof around where they shouldn't. Yeah,
the relationship between the kinds of claims that conspiracy theories want to make and like logical fallacies is just like really interesting, because it's like moving the goalposts and shifting the burden of proof, all those kinds of techniques, and it's just. I think what I find probably more bizarre, rather than like how they argue it, is why. It's like, why would anyone believe there's a lake in the middle of Australia? You know?
Yeah. There's lots of different psychological explanations for more not specifically to that one, but more generally why people kind of, I guess, rebel. There's some sort of anti-authoritarianism to it. It's like, I don't know, just some people just like to rebel and fit into particular groups.
Yeah, I think that's a large part of it. I've got a few.
Release your inner libertarian.
Yeah. No, I think that's part of it. First of all, I wanted to throw up like a quick definition before we start like going down rabbit holes about moon landings and stuff. Because I think we touched on a lot of the ideas we're going to touch on now in our really shitty Series 1 pseudoscience episode. Do you remember that?
I do.
That was like the first
one I did.
Yeah, probably. First one you did. I think were you in it?
Pseudoscience. Yeah, I was actually. Yeah, no, I was. That might have been a debut as well.
I bet you haven't listened to it, Dan.
I don't think I have. No.
Yeah.
I don't remember much about it. I confuse that with the artificial intelligence.
Because I haven't listened to it since. But we were trying to talk there about the nature of certain claims, different beliefs that people have, and things like the scientific method and why certain beliefs are superior to others in certain aspects. And I think that's something I kind of want to touch on today. But yeah, I think there's a big difference between what we can call a conspiracy theory and like something like a religious claim or like investigative journalism or like different ways of looking at the world. I think because it's like a whole worldview usually, and it's usually like it's centered around like a conflict. I think so, like sort of us and them, and like certain people are lying. You've got like power being like a really big part of it. So it's always like the big bad people are covering this sort of thing up. It's
falling into people like to put themselves in particular groups, and I don't really know, but I know part of it is that once upon a time, that would be a really good survival mechanism. Mm-hmm. You kind of like, you bond with people who are similar to you and you stick with them, and then you go and hunt mammoths or whatever. But basically that sort of psychological trait kind of in the present day, I think manifests itself as people want to have a sense of belonging to a particular demographic or whatever. Yeah. And, if you're not in the government elite, or which are typically like the main kind of perpetrators of a lot of conspiracy theories, then you're on the other side of them, and thus they're kind of hiding stuff from you. But I think like a lot of it is kind of a sense of security as well.
Yeah, well, there are three different kinds that I sort of found having a little research today. basically.
You probably found the same Google page, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Jesse Walker, 2013, identified 5 different kinds of theories. You got the enemy outside, the enemy inside, above, below, and then you've got like a 5th kind, which is like a benevolent thing, that's like aliens or something. But it's interesting how that definition fits around like the dynamic of power. So it's like the enemy within would be like, there are people in our society who are this and that. Outside is like, you know, different countries. Above is the elite, like you said. I think that's the most common at the moment.
A mixture of sub and superliminal.
Yeah,
So
and then
things you can't see, and which you'll be paranoid for these things.
I think the below one is interesting because I've never really seen that. It's like, I don't know, conspiracies about the poor or people that aren't in power. I've never really come across an example
It's
of
going to
that.
be kind of like a peasant's revolt as such.
Yeah, but it's I don't know.
Authority itself fears
It's not really a thing now.
brewing in the ranks.
Yeah.
Below.
Yeah, I think that those kind of things are really
I'm trying
unpopular.
to think of an example.
Yeah, I can't
in the
really.
past, or I don't know.
Modern day would just be kind of revolutions that you might get in South American countries, for
Yeah.
example. Any kind of dictatorships about to be overthrown.
Possibly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
A
but
lot of
then
it,
but then they're plausible.
Conspiracy theories don't, play out practically, but
See,
it's there in the mind.
I think there's a difference between like a theory or a plausible hypothesis and a conspiracy theory. Because I think conspiracy theories have to run contrary to the conventional belief, the established truth. I think that's a large part of them. I got 3 people just nodding.
They should really, by nature, conspiracy theory. They often see, when you say conspiracy theory, it's a derogatory term straight away to a lot of people. It means you are not believing anything. That's such it's a bad trait to have. Whereas really, they should never be fully open or closed entirely. They should be open to skepticism. Everything we say or question.
Well,
should be open.
absolutely, yeah,
100%,
yeah, and they're not, and it's quite. So the term actually first came up in the sort of turning of the 21st century in the 1900s, but it wasn't really popular, I think, until the first big one, correct me if I'm wrong, be like the moon landing or JFK assassination.
Worldwide knowledge.
One or
I'd
the
say.
other, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
One or
because
the other.
Roswell was like, the UFO, like the famous UFO site.
Yeah,
I was like, I think it was alleged to happen in 1947-ish, but I don't know. It may have come out after the moon landings in terms of intel. But to me, that's like probably one of the main beginnings of conspiracy theory.
Because that was like in the height of the sort of saucer craze, and everyone was
right. Yeah. So that was like the first established kind of UFO incident in the mainstream consciousness.
It's definitely the biggest one. Yeah.
What year was that?
I think it was 47.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't quote me on that, but there's something around that time when it was alluded to have crashed.
I think they were always like outsiders that believed in these things. The very not even that vocal minority, very much a minority, until I think stuff like V for Vendetta and Anonymous very recently, just like the last 10 years really, conspiracy theories are starting to pose a little bit of a threat to critical thinking. Anti-vaxxers, flat earth, these things are
Good.
you know what I mean? They're bigger than they should be or were, I think.
Yeah,
I believe that the Flat Earth Society of Australia page now have a grand swell. We're talking 4-figure some of likes on a Facebook page
They were
now.
on like Good Morning Britain or something, weren't they? Like earlier this year,
That's
something
horrific.
like that. They had them in and they were doing an interview on Good Morning Britain.
That's mental.
I think I've probably said this possibly in the pseudoscience one, but my friend's got a theory which I think is quite good to explain the flat Earth movement, for want of a better word, in that it was basically a thought experiment conceived by genuine geologists and physicists to see could a flat Earth exist actually in any form, and basically got well out of hand.
Yeah.
And basically it was conceived as like a thought hypothesis or whatever, and some people picked it up and took it as like genuine research, and it's just spiraled
And
from
now
there.
it's just gone out of hand. Yeah.
But
It's really hard to identify who's doing it out of satire now, who is trolling,
Right.
should we say? Who is not. It's really hard over the internet where you cannot see facial expressions or intonations
that's the thing,
of voice.
isn't it? It's
Who is instigating
There's no sort of
the mockery of it and who's actually part of it.
So why do we think these groups sort of generally exist? Are they all the same, or are some more like plausible than others?
Not all the same.
No, I think there's a massive difference. I think you have to examine conspiracy theories at like an individual level to determine the driver of like why people think that.
Yeah.
So, for example, just speculating, I would say that a lot of people think that the moon landings are fake probably don't believe we have the technology, because it's an incredible feat when you think about it. That we've landed on the moon. That's insane. And I still find it hard to believe. I mean, I do believe that we did it, but when you think about it, you're like, wow, we did that in 1969 or whatever.
Yeah.
I can see why a lot of people would just be like, nah, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But again, if you look at something like the anti-vax movement, that's like, if you're very uneducated about medicine or whatever, and there was one doctor ages ago who's been discredited ever since, who said that vaccines cause autism or established that link, and you read that and then you think, well, I don't want to put vaccines in my precious children, and you don't know anything about how they work. I can see why you might start to think, maybe there's something in it.
You've got to see both sides of the coin ultimately.
Right.
Well,
it's interesting. One of the first things you mentioned was authoritarianism versus libertarianism. Kind of as you're a neutral for each individual case study, a lot of people tend to leap either side and take a stance. So I want to believe what the authorities are telling me, or I'm a man of my own opinion, effectively.
Yeah.
So I think until the last few decades, really, people were very unified in their thinking, and it's sort of cultural hegemony, and I don't think we have that anymore. I think people are very, lack of a better word, anxious and scared in contemporary times. So I think they latch on to a contrived, fabricated conflict that's almost entirely fiction to give them a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose in a greater conflict. And I think it does have parallels with religion, in the sense that religion is based on a conflict between people or ideals, things like sin and holiness. But I think rather than this big cosmological thing with theology and stuff, I think it's a very watered down, very stripped down version, and I think it doesn't have a lot of the nuances that religion has, and a lot of the validity. So I think that's what marks it as very different in terms of its thinking. I mean, you mentioned anti-vaxxers. I think there are certain psychological reasons, because I think the last sort of 10 years we've become more accepting of individualism. You look at the kind of animated films that would come out pre sort of 80s. They were all about even like Lion King is a story that landed, and it's about a fucking a king restoring order and everything. I don't think that kind of narrative works anymore. You think of some of the stuff like that came out just a little bit after that, some of the kids' films and stuff. They were trying to push for this, Antsy and Bugs Life. They were all trying to push for this, the plight of the individual against that kind of stuff didn't really fly back in the day, and now it's starting to. So I think we've really knuckled down on individualism in the way we tell stories and fiction and things.
Everyone's an activist, though. That's the thing. Everyone's got an opinion, and everyone's wants to put forward their opinion on the internet, and it's just like that is the
I think that's where these conspiracy theories really get caught up in this. It's from that. But I think anti-vaccine, I think it's kind of plausible in some sense to think an entertaining idea at least, that corporations might put greed before health. There's some, but like when it comes to like flat Earth, I'm just like I have no idea why you think
I'm with you on that.
There's no conflict here. Like you have no enemy to imagine. Whilst at least, I mean, I don't believe for a second that anti-vaxxers have a leg to stand on, but flat Earth, I can't even see the leg. It's like, what are you thinking? Why would the Earth be flat? Why?
Yeah, you can divide these conspiracy theories into subcategories. So. Such an example of the fact that people, or the anti-vaxxer people, things people don't believe are physically impossible to achieve, but then also societal things that there'll be kind of, so there's some ulterior motive behind it. What do this party have to gain? This is why they're doing it. It's it's hidden beyond ways we can see.
Trying to like expose an agenda from people. Yeah, I think is a large part of it.
So if you link it to a proven, accepted conspiracy theory that it was verified, the poisoning of American citizens during the US prohibition. 1920s, and it was confirmed that to ban bootlegged alcohol, the government were effectively poisoning barrels of whiskey.
It's not a very good start, is it? Really?
No, you can see why there was the uprising.
I mean, was it really regarded as a conspiracy theory before that? Like, did they have sufficient grounds to think it? Was it like an established, or was it just like a hunch that somebody had, and then it suddenly got proven to be right?
I'm not sure how it was spread initially, but the people did have a hunch. It became more, each case study, everyone was getting poisoned. It was more than coincidence, effectively. So someone twigged, they had an idea, they investigated.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of hits on ideas of epistemology, and when can we say that knowledge is justified? If somebody leaked that, and then the information trickled down causally to the people then believing it in the public, it's like, well, that's valid. But if it's difficult. If it's true, then it's valid. But if it's not, and we don't know if it's true until after the case.
Yeah, one at least libertarian case for believing conspiracy theories. But if you do research on most of them, they do reach a bit of a cul-de-sac, really.
Yeah,
a lot of them do just turn out to be falsified in the end. The majority of.
Have you seen any of the stuff on like Flat Earth? You've seen much of the details of what they believe, because there's all these documentaries, aren't there?
Yeah, not really. It doesn't seem to me like a coherent thing. It seems like within the Flat Earth Society, I think they call themselves, there are just sub theories about what's going on, and they do seem to have an answer for everything. I mean, to varying levels of bullshit, but they do have an answer. Like, with regards to gravity and
eclipses are the big one. There's various, and
like, why flat Earth? Why not flat Mars? I'm sure someone's thought of it.
Well, they don't believe Mars is flat officially. They believe
what?
Okay. I'm saying, like, why would you pick the planet that we live on, which is the one that we can investigate most thoroughly? And prove we're obviously living on a fucking sphere. Come on, guys. Whereas why not pick like a planet a bit further out that maybe we haven't directly observed, but then it just doesn't really ring.
I think it's just
about other planets. Then what's the?
They think they're round. They think they're planetoids like ours. They think they're
There's no consistency to their own logic.
Yeah,
this is why I feel like it was just started as a joke, because I don't understand. Yeah, like you said earlier, there's no motive. There's no basis for.
Yeah, I think it just boils down to sort of. I'm going to be honest, narcissism. I think it's just wanting to. Believe in some kind of truth that other people don't.
Yeah.
And
it might even be a popularity thing.
Yeah.
In this day and age,
to feel superior.
To feel
wanting to be heard.
Superior knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's thinking you have superior knowledge over someone.
There's no financial incentive.
I think they just make they make that conflict the center of their sort of
careful
worldview. Yeah, I can't say. So they believe that the Earth, they believe the Earth is a flat like a turtle, or I don't know, because there is that turtle thing, isn't there?
Perfectly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's one of the sub theories. Yeah, that's on a turtle's back.
I think that's mythology. I think that's like Native American mythology or something.
But that's like a book as well. Who's the dude? There's like a book, isn't there, where the Earth's on a...
Wow.
Isn't that Discworld?
Discworld, yeah. That's it. Right. Like,
But yeah, like, how can you're trying to get people to take you seriously anyway, and then you say, and there's a turtle, and it's fucking massive, and it's in space.
That's when you lose most of your demographic in that moment, really.
Well,
I think it's fantasy, like, it's Discworld. It's like...
Well, I mean, look, we talked about ghosts in the pseudoscience episode, and some of the things, a giant turtle in space, a poltergeist, are they really that dissimilar? They're almost just as unlikely. But there are whole groups that believe in poltergeists and that they have powers based on nothing more than a few clicks and whistles in the dark and an oddly shaped photo.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's as simple as some people are more gullible than others, or maybe it's a bit of a strong word. I don't know, but like some people are going to be more susceptible. Yeah, gullible, right? By definition, they're more susceptible to being convinced of things that may not be true, or without doing due diligence.
There's certainly
it's a factor.
Yeah, it's certainly a factor. I think it's kind of an erosion of trust is part of it, because I think this idea of expertise is relatively novel in society, and I think sort of kicked in the 1600s. You started to have the expert as an idea, and they arose to kind of fit a very specific purpose, so like things like bookkeeping. As society became more kind of wealthy and ordered, but I think slowly experts have been proven wrong again and again, and I think a lot of people started to grow more distrustful of them. I think it's also a lack of understanding of the scientific method. You know what it means to actually have things like peer review, why empiricism works, why looking at evidence works, why you can't just say something is a fact without testing it and retesting it in controlled conditions. I think that these kinds of ideas aren't common knowledge, despite people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye the Science Guy trying to make them common knowledge.
I think and part of that is the statistical slant as well. So we've all heard is it like lies, damn lies, and statistics? Because with statistics, you can pretty much spin like any kind of numbers to tell whatever story you want. Yeah. So we had I think it was a couple of years ago, I think it was 2016 or 2017, when a lot of famous people died really close together.
Yeah,
everyone was like, well, I don't think, not that I'm aware of, a conspiracy theory was born out of it, but it was like, that's really weird.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty much due to the fact that they were born in that kind of baby boomer generation. There's more people generally dying, and therefore there's going to be more famous people dying.
Yeah,
right. So
famous period in history. There were no really famous people apart from monarchs, really, or famous warriors, really, in the first accepted few thousand years of modern society.
So it's a loose example, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's lots of weird things that can be explained just with probability. And stats, and
they were at the
vast majority of people won't have
at the age where
understanding of that.
A lot of them around 70, 80
exactly.
now.
It's just that's the life expectancy.
Metabolic expectancy rate.
The average person born in that era, that's the life.
And there's that thing I'm going to fucking butcher this explanation because I can't really remember it, but if you get a certain amount of people in a room, I think it's a very small number, it's 23 or something.
I thought you were going to say 4 then.
No. Okay, could be a bit of a range on that number that I just quoted, but basically it's a very small number of people you get in a room, and there's a 99% chance 2 will share the same birthday, and you don't have to get anywhere near 365, and it sounds counterintuitive.
Wow.
But the reason it works is because you don't specify the date. It's just any 2 birthdays that are the same. If you did specify a date, you would have to get 365 before you definitely. If you get, I think it's 23, might be a bit more, a bit less. If you get that many people in the room, there's a very, very strong chance that 2 will share the same birthday. But because I don't have to specify when that is in the year, it opens up a lot more possibility.
Okay, So rather than saying on March the 17th.
Exactly. In which case you would have to probably get a couple of hundred people or whatever before you'd expect that to happen.
Yeah.
So
I think whilst we're looking at explanations of why people believe these things, I think part of it, you can't really not talk about the internet whilst we talk about this kind of stuff. I think this
absolutely.
The idea of the marketplace of ideas, like everyone sharing all their ideas, without a counterweight or an anchor to do that with. If you don't know things like ad hominem, so attacking someone's personality instead of the idea, if you don't know that doesn't solve a debate, you can't go into this conversation. It's just going to it's a shout factory. You know what I mean? Online.
Yeah, I think I was going to talk about social media and online more generally. There's a few things going on. First is that obviously it's much, much faster to get information, but it's much, much faster to spread disinformation.
Yes.
And depending on where you go online, it depends what you're going to find. People tend to group and talk with other people who share the same views, and you end up having an echo chamber, which is pretty much what it sounds. Is that you basically it happens with forums. You go on a forum. It's
when you look at your Facebook post and your Facebook feed, and everyone votes conservative, so you just get conservative stuff all the time, and similar age demographics, and then you end up just confirming. So no longer does the internet challenge your ideas; it just
reaffirms it.
It inflates your sense of belief to the point where, by any normal standard, it's like you really should be taking other points of view into consideration, but they're not doing that because everyone's talking about the same thing, and everyone is so. It's like a bit nerdy, but like in physics, like when waves meet, right? If the wavelengths match, it's called constructive interference, and the waves get bigger. So like if two quite small wavelengths meet and they happen to be at the same frequency, the waves get bigger. Parallel I'm trying to make is that if everyone in like a forum is saying the same thing, they're going to beef each other up, and it's going to be like, they're going to reaffirm each other.
And when they do
it's
meet,
a multiplicative effect.
Yeah, very good word. When they do meet the opposing opinion, it's detached as well. You don't see the human face, you don't see their reaction, and you can't have a full conversation anyway because you're restricted in your characters, and you can only use emojis and everything. And you know, because you're online, you feel a lot more
comfortable and happy.
And how many of these people would regurgitate that in the street? Very few.
Very often they don't. This is why it's good to have these conversations in somewhat like a pub, and not you can't solve these things. I don't think philosophy and stuff can be solved on those kinds of forums at all. I think they're very long conversations, and a lot of people are just looking for easy ways out. They're looking for camps to sort of fix themselves in, because this lack of meta narrative, this lack of meaning that we all share, has completely eroded. So now people have to find little ones and contrive them if they can. So it just becomes, well, I'm in this group, and then if you don't believe me, you're a snowflake, or you're
that's the problem. The problem is saying I'm in this group without like arguing your way there logically. It's backwards. You should logically go, I've got all these points of view, I'm going to analyse them and then decide what I think is what's going on. Instead they go, I want that one, and I'm not going to listen to any of this other shit.
And they fall down a rabbit hole, and then it just expands.
Exactly. It's a weird way to do stuff, but it's from the off, it's not based on any logical argument. Like
I don't think, I don't want to be too critical, because it's fucking scary, all these ideas flying around. I think you need to be equipped to go into this world. I think you need a sense of moral courage. It's a lot harder to stand there with all these camps and just go, no, none of them. I'm gonna be.
But where does it begin and where does it end? That's the problem. Kids these days, they're growing up and stuff, and it's just easily accessible. The internet is there. When we were younger, it wasn't there until we were slightly older. So where does it...
I think if you teach critical thinking and put more of an emphasis on why critical thinking is so important, I think you can get around this a lot. But I honestly think we weren't expecting... I don't think we know how deep into all this we are. I don't think we were expecting the explosion of the internet and what the internet would do, how it would damage conversation, how it would change in a matter of decades. The fact that an argument isn't necessarily something you win; it's something you learn from. And we've
hit the nail on the head. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe it that way, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there, man.
That's a good quote.
People are just constantly trying to usurp others.
Definitely.
Not really trying to establish any everyone feels it. Everyone feel they need to be the antithesis to someone else. People can in the same conversation can mutually agree on some points, but also disagree on others. And some people just seem completely incapable to try and facilitate
out
that.
there to rile people up, and just like cause shit. I
want to play the devil's advocate. I want to be as contrary as possible. Or I'm just going to nod and say yes to everything.
So that said, right, I do think there are kind of some benefits to having conspiracy theories. I just don't think you should have them very vocal. It's like
without
it's like
established some kind of factual through qualitative or quantitative means.
So I think a very healthy democracy would have a far right party standing. I just don't think they would have any seats, because I think people would be listening to them, debating with them, going, I don't want anything to do with that. And I think like in a poll or whatever, I think you should be hearing homophobic voices and going, okay, that's out there now. I've listened to that. It's ugly. I don't like it. I'm going to go for the other thing. But if you stifle too many voices, it can. I mean, it's not. There's no choice then. You've just eliminated choice, and it's no longer a democracy. So I think conspiracy theories and some of the wackier stuff out there is useful, but to demonstrate how arguing shouldn't be done. The problem is that I think we kind of are too eager to say, well, all opinions are kind of valid, and it's this lack of critical thinking again. So, and I think they're a bit too more vocal than they should be. Is a large part of the issue, because they weren't that vocal, they weren't that big back in the day, and now I don't know. I am genuinely worried about, like, in 10 years' time, are we gonna start seeing more of these types of groups? Because there's lots of, like, people that just don't really care about science. I mean, I didn't for a very long time.
It's hard to tell, though, isn't it? I mean, you know, we're of a certain age now, and there are people obviously younger than us who are growing up in different circumstance. You know, what will they feel about these things? And like you said, you know, it's just it's almost like stepping stones, or it's just, you know, you can't even think about it.
Yeah, especially as people become more divided. Yeah.
But by nature, there, if people become more divided, you always reach kind of equilibrium with the kind of political spectrum. As more people drift to the left, others then respectively drift to the right, or interchange. Yeah. That could be through experiences. It could be through age, class, social standing, any of these things. Yeah. So although you do see a few, like say, extreme parties, in terms of mainstream attention, none of them really are effectively, elected. And if it happens, it's rare. Has happened before, as we know. But normally because lies have been sold to them.
I don't think they need to be elected. Well, I mean, I'm going to be the first one to mention Nazi Germany.
I was actually, to be fair, I set it up for that.
Well, Karl Popper actually talks. Karl Popper's a philosopher, who's alive in the last 100 years. He's kind of like one of the last sort of big deals in philosophy. He was sort of very interested in arguing against totalitarianism and authoritarianism. And he I think he used the word conspiracy theories, he used the term to talk about Nazi Germany and the way it sowed lies. And that would actually be an example of the enemy below thing that I said about. So that, I don't know, actually. Were the Jews above or below? I don't know.
They were seen as inferior by Mr. Hitler, but above in their social standing.
I love how you gave him the courtesy of calling him Mr.
Mr. Hitler.
Mr. Hitler.
If nothing else, he was a Mister.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
You snowflakes, don't tell us otherwise.
But it's the way I sort of look at it is that, you know, back then, a leaflet came through your door and you were led to believe this one thing. Whereas now, it's all on the internet and stuff, you know, it's a totally different thing. But, like, unless you actually knew the people that they felt who were inferior, you had no understanding.
It was definitely a very different context.
Yeah.
More was known about their lives, let's say, politicians today.
And information was definitely easier to control. I don't know, I still think people had enough access to literature. The thing to remember is that it was a fully functioning and probably more democratic society than we were at the time.
Yeah.
In Weimar Germany. So these people were educated. It's not like the state controlled them, but only because they asked the state to control them.
Yeah.
They elected them to do it. So
which is
that's the nail in the coffin, really, for any sort of argument for it. It's like, well, you chose it. And great philosophers endorsed it. So, I think this is the 5th podcast in a row I mentioned this bastard. Martin Heidegger, he was a big philosopher back in the day, and he was a Nazi sympathizer. He later kind of said he was sorry.
Just joking, lads.
I think he's. I think
everything.
Yes.
He
did leave.
Sorry, guys.
He did leave the Nazi party. He did leave the Nazi party after all that final solution stuff, and not after it.
After all that Holocaust shit.
The way I phrased that. No, before that. Sorry, he left. I think he left before it went. He jumped ship a bit, and then I think he strolled around. Strolled around a garden in his later life with a Holocaust survivor, and I don't know, he wasn't really that apologetic about what he did. I think he just sort of believed that strong people needed to inherit. But this is a person who was widely read, and there were lots of intellectuals in Germany, but the Nazi. I mean, we've got to get off Nazis soon, Christ. But the Nazi party had the support of people who should have known better, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's all about a lack of information.
No.
But I think actually a multiplicity of information doesn't necessarily encourage rich dialogue. I think it makes a lot of people sort of put their head in the sand and turn away and go, "Fuck, I've got a choice now." Well, I don't want the choice, and I think that's a large part of it. Or they go, "Well, this will kind of make me cool. Like, I've got this little camp to believe in." So
that's the thing. Maybe the choice wasn't.
Yeah, I think
something that just went
fundamentally the us and them
it's
mechanic,
difficult, isn't it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and they're like, as I said, it's a primal survival mechanism that you band together with people who are similar to you, and I think that is probably one of the most fundamental drivers behind why people do believe in conspiracy theories. As I said earlier, I think you have to look at each one case by case, but ultimately, in the case of like flat Earth, if nothing else, it's just because they want to be like people who are like that.
Yeah, and
you get these natural bandings.
A lot of them have a sense of community. There's sort of big subcultures,
Right,
online, especially online. You see, they can communicate very easily, and they can meet up and have little sessions and meet friends.
In a different way, mentioning kind of how many people in a room, I'd be interested if there was some quantitative analysis on how many people are likely to believe a certain doctrine point of view based on how many other people in that room believe in that as well, and whether there's a direct correlation between that person therefore taking a similar stance based on social conformity, fearing ridicule, being socially annexed effectively, just in order to cooperate with others.
There was something similar. What you just reminded me when you said people in a room. There's an experiment where they had a lot of people in a room, and they were told that, like, when the buzzer went off or something, or a bell rang or something, you have to go and stand by that wall, let's say the north wall. But they planted a couple of people in there who would go and stand by the opposite wall. Like, they knew they were going to be doing that, if that makes sense. And when the buzzer went off, people started obviously going to the wall they were told to stand by, but obviously the plants went to the other wall. And so many people turned around and joined them, just because they thought, well, I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. And completely ignoring the very clear instruction that they were to go to.
There's something very fundamental about that, isn't there? Because it's like that's
what I was looking for. I was hoping someone was going to do something like that.
That's insane.
I didn't know that was an experiment that existed before.
That's crazy.
But it's scary. But like, people do that. Like, if you were walking down the street and people were running towards you, you'd probably turn and run with them. Shit, I know I would. Like, but you don't know what's going on. But you're just like, it's coming back to that sort of primal, like, stick with the herd type behaviour.
Sure, yeah.
But, other than physically, like going places or running, that can obviously manifest itself in your thinking as well, I think, quite a lot. Cool. Yeah, that's a good point.
Should we pause it there?
Okay, so, as I was saying, given the amount of conspiracy theories out there, because I wouldn't want to put a number on it, but it's got to be thousands, possibly millions, because as I said, there was like sub-theories.
Depending on how you define them, yeah, sure.
Right, so what I was saying is that actually most people, I think, are at least going to look at one or two and think, actually, yeah, there's probably something there. So
do you think so? Do you think most people would give credence to, like...
I think if you hypothetically gave them every single conspiracy theory under the sun, I think maybe not necessarily they go, yeah, I believe that, but they'd be like, yeah, actually, that's not all proper.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know what? This is something I should have researched. Because a significant portion of, like, the US actually believes the moon landing is fake.
Yeah.
There was
and I think chemtrails is 17%. I don't think this is US, I think this is globally. 17% of people think chemtrails is true, which is the idea that planes are spreading
like
through toxic materials in the sky.
Yeah. The stuff you see in the sky after planes. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think things like what I was saying about not necessarily saying, yeah, I believe that. So let's take 9/11, just quite a big one.
Yeah.
Many conspiracy theories about that. For me personally, I wouldn't say that it was a government cover-up or whatever, but I do think there's a lot of things that don't add up. For example, I believe there was a plane that crashed into the Pentagon separately around the same time.
Yeah, I think so.
Which happened to be empty. Everyone had cleared out under circumstances that aren't really...
There's then no footage of, let's be honest, the most...
Clear.
Are there any others you believe in?
So I feel that I would say I'm a natural skeptic. I don't really buy into a lot of this stuff, and I like to think that I look at stuff with a critical mind. But with that particular case, that's just an example of what I personally think. There's just so much evidence that suggests that it just didn't happen the way it was reported. But I don't think we'll ever know, because
why was Osama dumped at sea?
Right, yeah.
Things like that. I mean, all of these things,
and the whole Hitler thing, like Hitler escaped to South Africa, even Argentina.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Nazis did.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of them did.
Nazis again.
Freudian slip by Connor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think you can. I think it's fine to just look at conspiracy theories and think, I don't believe that, but I can sort of see where they're coming from, and maybe that's true, and maybe that bit is true, and
I think conspiracy theories,
calling it a conspiracy theory in itself is automatically giving it a kind of, it's destroying its credibility.
Well, I think
and
it's
there is a conspiracy
term.
theory that says
Yeah.
there is a conspiracy theory that says conspiracy theories were concocted by the government to basically to basically say, actually, all this shit is going on, but we're going to call it conspiracy theories and
all of them.
smear it.
This doesn't happen. This doesn't
It's
happen.
probably a satirical.
Even the ones like living in basements made up by 3 people in their mum's basement with tin foil on it.
Right?
Even those.
And like, I think just one more example of something I believe is probably true. So I can't really give specifics, but like you hear about like things like Amazon. It's like a little device that you say, like, that you put in your room and you can give it voice commands. And the idea is that it goes the other way, and Amazon and Google are collecting your voice data and stuff. I think with data, and I think I'm fairly qualified to actually talk about the subject because it is quite integral to my job. I do believe that like data is being harvested that shouldn't be. Not by everyone.
I think that's
by particular companies.
Universally accepted.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more commonly accepted things.
I wouldn't even call that conspiracy theory, because you have plausible grounds to believe it. You don't. When you say you believe it, you don't know.
You don't know. No,
you wouldn't be surprised if it was the truth, and you have good grounds to think it is the truth. I don't think that's quite the same as saying no, the Earth is definitely flat.
No, there's a line, because there's like false beliefs that you have. So actually, when I was doing my research earlier, a good one is that quite a lot of people don't know that the capital of Australia is like Canberra or something. A lot of people go, oh, it's Sydney, or it's Melbourne, but it's not. But once they're confronted with that fact, they're like, oh, okay, I was wrong. And that's kind of, where do you draw the line between that and a conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a spectrum. Because,
that's
but then when you
interesting,
confront someone with a belief about their conspiracy theory, they're just like, oh, no. But even though it's like, you're kind of...
Well, everything you say to disprove them is evidence of the fact they're right.
They've got an answer to everything.
Yeah, so. It's like mental gymnastics, but that's,
Good term.
Some people just aren't really willing to swallow their pride and admit that they were wrong as well.
Oh, pride's absolutely a big factor in it.
Definitely, yeah.
So
becomes egotistical then.
Here's where some more sort of philosophy terms come back in. This came across a term in my research called epistemic responsibility. So epistemology is basically like how do we know anything exists? And what criteria do we judge you? What is a justified true belief? Kind of those kinds of ideas. The idea that we should be epistemically responsible is really interesting, because it brings into these into epistemology the ideas like ethics and the philosophy of religion and stuff. So, are people who have religious beliefs morally justified in having them? But is it morally bad to believe in certain bad ideas? I think this is a really sort of interesting area of philosophy, because I think the four of us, not only are we naturally skeptical, very hesitant, not just, I mean, skeptical doesn't just mean that in the sense of philosophy. I think to be skeptical means something a little bit different. It's more about reserving judgment until you have evidence. It's not just like, because you wouldn't be skeptical of evidence. If evidence is evidence, then it's evidence.
Yeah, I think I have an answer to this. I think everything should be questioned, although in terms of etiquette, social convention, there is a time, there is a place. For example, when you confront victims of a terrorist attack, for example, you don't run over magnanimously and declare to the families of the dead victims, didn't happen, mate. Didn't see it. But
Yeah.
I think everyone should, in the back of their minds, have, you know, a natural degree of skepticism to kind of weigh up the pros, the cons, the arguments for and against, but just not facilitate them. Don't vociferate your point of view. And again, that we're linking this back to kind of more being socially intelligent. You know, what you know, when is the, you know, right time, the right place. Effectively.
Yeah. So I think
Common sense of it.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think so, because I think I mentioned, how do we go about sort of openly challenging people like mediums? The difficulty is I find I've always struggled with this kind of idea. It's like I don't just want to tell people, the kind of people that say philosophy is a load of bollocks, just stupid. I don't kind of want to tell people, well, I don't care what your opinion is, because what, you know, on what criteria what am I dismissing other people's opinions? And also, how do I have that conversation more meaningfully? How do I actually convince other people? Because just saying, "Oh, you're an idiot to believe that," then you just contribute to the shout factory.
Yeah.
So how do you how do you do this? And so that there's one idea, as you're alluding to, that sort of idea like civil discourse. How do you actually have a dialogue with somebody who believes in utter nonsense? You know, when is it appropriate to do that, and how do you do that? How do you
facilitate it? Do you even want to facilitate it in the first place?
That's
sometimes
the thing. I'd even go as far as to say, like, there's got to be a point where you're just like, I'm not even going to bother.
No.
Yeah.
It's a waste of time, energy.
But then it's lose-lose, because in that sense, if you're seen, let's say, in public light, you know, in a radio or televised event, to do that, it almost would seem as if you've lost the argument. You haven't lost the argument, you're just not willing to facilitate the stupidity that you know you're going to be subject to. It's kind of, you know, you can't win.
No.
Yeah, because my personal disposition, if I see something I don't agree with or I hear, I'm generally not going to bother engaging them.
Yeah,
honestly, because I'm
most
just
people
like,
don't.
I'm quite content in my own opinions, and I'm pretty confident. I'm happy to have a debate, and I'm happy to listen to other points of view. Absolutely,
people ask me first.
It's great.
You know, I'll share my viewpoints.
I'm all, you know, we're all for it.
But if someone's going to say something that I just don't think it is a bit like situation specific, I suppose. But generally, if I overhear something or whatever, I'm not going to go, actually, and just jump in. I don't really care. I'm happy to let people...
Oh, shit, now, back in the room.
See, I used to do that,
I do that every
kind of
thing.
I used to do that a lot, that kind of like interjecting when people said things.
I wasn't always like this. I used to often... I don't know, you feel like you've got something to sort of prove, or you're trying to win an argument, but if you have a debate with people who have these deeply entrenched beliefs, it's probably going to take some sort of systematic change over time to change a point of view. You're not going to get solved in a conversation.
You're not going to change them overnight.
No.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. So obviously some people kind of think, well, all ideas are pretty much fair game. And it's not irresponsible to hold a bad idea. Now, as much as I say that I don't think we should be interjecting and jumping out on people and sort of going, oh, you believe in utter bollocks. In fact, I'm very reticent personally. I do, if you were to ask my opinion, that's like what you just said, Zach, like it's all about, you have to be asked first. Because people, only because I believe that if I didn't ask and I said it, it would go down a lot worse. Yeah. It's the consequence. So because I think people have this very negative view of skepticism, because they think skepticism is an anti thing.
Yeah,
and it's not really. It's if anything, it's the promotion of critical thinking and knowledge, scientific method, and you know, having sort of prudential wisdom and actually, you know, how you arrive at certain ideas. But people, I think, just because
you're a cynic, you don't like anything. You're horrible. Yeah,
exactly. So I would actually.
I'm sorry for not believing in everything that I've been told, taken at face value.
I would actually put myself in this camp of people that are more strict about the kinds of ideas that enter the public domain. And I would actually say that there are responsibilities in how we form beliefs and the way we talk about them. Now, that's not... Because, again, this is something that always comes up again and again, and it's one of my bugbears. Like, when people go, look, people can believe what you want, you can't stop them. This is usually where the point where the conversation for me derails. And it's like, no. So, it probably goes without saying to you guys, but there's a difference between a subjective conversation and a legal one. I'm not saying people cannot. I'm saying that, in my opinion, and it's not just opinion like taste, it's opinion with arguments behind it. My opinion is an invitation to debate. In saying you cannot do that, I'm not actually trying to physically stop you. I'm inviting you to debate me, and trying to give you, at least probably not in my argument might not be compelling, but I'm trying to give you a compelling reason not to do it. But do you ever run into that? Because I run into it all the time.
In my life, I'm not presented with this.
Yeah,
quite often.
less than yeah.
Because I'll just like clarify kind of what I mean. So I might have said this in a podcast before. I don't think I have it. So I was in the SU bar as usual, and so the Christian Union came in, and they were doing like this big sort of Q&A session, and this is back when I was like pretty into my atheism. So I was like getting ready,
rubbing your hands,
just like, when do I attack?
Ready to mic drop this shit.
When does this? Yeah.
But yeah, they were sort of just like coming out with some weird shit, like dinosaurs were on Noah's Ark kind of thing. They actually said that. They said like some pretty ropey stuff about homosexuality, causing all the LGBT group who were having their little social there because they didn't know this was going on. They all left. Right.
Who did a PR for that night?
Yeah, some secretary's getting fired.
Yeah.
But no, it was some really. It was horse shit. It was evangelical shit. It was bad. It was like, that wasn't like C of E standard stuff. No. This was homophobic, and it was pseudoscience. It was wrong.
Yeah.
And it was in the public domain, and it was people saying, look, whether you're any kind of bad person, a homosexual, a murderer, God loves you. It's like, yeah, stuff like that.
To label someone, the same, just casually brush off, a murderer on the same level as.
Yeah, no word of a lie. That was almost verbatim. That sentence.
That was the context that they said it as well.
And that wasn't just one of the students at the Christian Union. That was one of the fucking pastors, whatever they're called.
Good God,
that's just giving Christians a bad name.
Yeah, of course it is. I believe it.
They're trying to promote Christianity, I assume.
Yeah,
and. Like, I can't imagine any rational-minded person taking that other than, well, fuck you then. I'm not interested.
This is the thing. This is the thing. A lot of us were getting very rowdy. There was an option to text in your sort of answers, or your questions rather, or your whatever.
Who wants to be a millionaire or something?
Yeah, it was like a fucking game show. It was like a game show. But they facilitate the conversation. So any text I sent in, they didn't answer. They were reading them. The guy was like reading through them. Oh, some great texts here, guys, with his little microphone. We're going to be reading them all out. No, you didn't. No. You're fucking ignoring me. Yeah. So I start. They start saying things like faith and reason are entirely compatible, and I'm like, fucking hell, we solved this in the 16th century. They're not really. Like, and that's not even an insult to religion. Religion is not about reason; it's about faith. That's why we have faith.
Yeah.
It's something separate, and it's not necessarily something bad. I mean, you wouldn't know it. The kind of shit you're espousing, but. One of the guys from behind the bar came out, and he starts mouthing off. I'm like, oh, thank God, someone's sticking up for reason here.
Yeah.
And there was another guy behind the bar who was a humanist. He was a secularist, and he didn't want to get involved. And I'm like, oh, come on, why? So this guy that came out, he was actually vocalizing his opinions. He was saying like, no, you're homophobic, this and that. And then when he roundabout the pastor said that he was homophobic. And at least enough to satisfy this guy that was coming out and having a go at him. The guy stopped. He was like, cool, cheers, and walked away. I was like, are you not going to sort of demonstrate why that belief is wrong? He's like, no, I just wanted him to be honest. I don't mind what he says as long as it's honest. As long as he's honest about what he's saying. I'm just like, no, but don't you disagree? And then like 3 people looked at me. I was like, you can't, what do you mean? You can't stop them. I'm just like, we didn't stop them. What? Like, I'm gonna like fucking kill them or something? What am I gonna do? Debate, and he's like, yeah, but and they seem to think that anything you technically can say legally is okay. That you cannot criticize that. You can only start criticizing things at the point where they start harming people, and that's what I'm trying to get at with this long-winded example.
Hate speech.
No, that's the fundamental. I think this is one of the things about free speech that people misinterpret, is that free speech, yes, you technically are entitled to your own opinions, however extreme, and you're entitled to vocalise that. doesn't mean I have to sit there and take that shit. Like, by definition, free speech means that I can then go, I don't agree, and this is why.
Yeah.
And enter a debate.
But you and then also, if you have free speech, you should be listening to why this person disagrees with you.
It works both ways.
You don't have to necessarily tolerate or accept any of it. You should evaluate it.
Yes,
I totally agree.
That's where.
But you should absolutely have rights to then present a counter argument. I mean, that should be fundamentally how a healthy society debates and works things through, and at a personal level as well.
But like, they were just like, well, yes, it's homophobic, but it's not. They're not hating gay people, because obviously it's all codified in this, like, Christ loves you. It's like, you're an horrible fucking bum boy, but Christ loves you. It's like, you can say any horrible thing you like and then just put Christ loves you on the end. Yeah, and it's prefacing it in this weird paradoxical language. But anyway, so yeah, everyone in the bar was just like, well, you can't. They can say what they like. I know they can say it.
So can you.
Yeah, but exactly.
Like, I don't understand how people don't get how this works.
I think part of the problem is that they see the word religion and it's like, oh, that's kind of something else. It belongs. It's like this rich thing.
It's a shield, isn't it?
Yeah.
People don't want to interfere, do they?
So when I say that I think people have an epistemic responsibility, I don't mean like we should be like fucking impounding their cars and like,
throwing chairs across the room.
Yeah, if they don't, I mean this subjectively, but it's not subjective in the sense of it's my taste. I like toast or ice cream. It's like, here's a strong argument and an invitation to debate. There you go. Epistemic responsibility. Have you heard of this guy called W.K. Clifford?
Nope.
He was this fucking lad back in the mid 1800s.
Is he a big red dog?
No, he wasn't.
Fucking hell.
Clifford the big red dog.
Brilliant.
I'm mostly laughing at the pub quiz the other day, and the answer wasn't Clifford the big red dog. It was the name of a big dog, and I said Clifford, and I got it wrong, and I lost the quiz.
What was the answer?
I can't remember, but it fucking wasn't Clifford.
Clifford is the only big red dog.
Yeah,
he's the only.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So anyway,
as you were.
Anyway, W.K. Clifford,
Seriously.
in a paper called The Ethics of Belief, published in 1877, he argued that we always have an obligation to believe based on evidence. Right. So opening the whiskey.
As you were.
Yeah, so he says we always have this obligation to believe based on evidence. And he uses words like obligation. He's very strict about this. So the way I would say that we have an obligation is slightly different, because he wants to just talk about knowledge. So a quote from him, right? It is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything on insufficient evidence. He also says it's wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to ignore evidence that is relevant to his beliefs. So he thinks it's wrong to have false beliefs based on no evidence, and it's also wrong to ignore evidence. And he's really fucking strict about this. But I think he's thinking more of, he's looking at the evidence outwards. He's kind of looking at beliefs and not focusing on the people that hold them. Because the way I approach epistemology, because most epistemology is sort of like looking at the nature of knowledge. I'm not looking at the kind of person. It's like classical ethics. So in classical ethics, you have the nature. You're always looking at actions. We're looking at the intentions of that action and the consequences of that action. But there's a new kind of way that's relatively popular recently, which is called virtue ethics, which is looking at the character of a person, looking at the context in which they live, and are they a good person? And so actions make sense in that context of the kind of person they are. Not, would you push a fat man off a bridge and to stop a train heading into 100 people? There are questions like that. So virtue ethics isn't interested in that. Virtue ethics is interested in more day-to-day stuff about how you approach life. What kind of person are you? And that's the area of ethics that interests me more. So with virtue epistemology, it's not so much about looking at the beliefs and all the evidence abstractly. It's looking at what kind of person are you? What kind of critical thinking do you exercise every day? And the context in which you live. Because otherwise we could judge people in the Middle Ages. If we take some of those elements too far, we could start judging people in the Middle Ages for being stupid. But I think it's also about, and I think it kind of ties into what you were saying about how we debate people as well, and knowing when to debate people and when not to, and knowing when to be tactful. But also, how much of a skeptic we are every day, like how we go about living curiously and not sort of taking everything on gullibly. And I think that's a more interesting way to approach that kind of stuff. So I would agree with this Clifford guy, because I think big red dog. I agree with this Clifford guy, because I think he's right, but I think he wants to be very stringent about certain beliefs are better. But I think it's more about the approach, basically. And I think that's not something that people exercise. It's kind of alien idea.
They don't exercise it enough.
Yeah, and the day-to-day lives, and the kind of hectic nature of things, people just don't sit back and analyse.
No, definitely not.
There is, I think people should know there is a time and a place for it.
So his justification for basically thinking this is that no belief is private. You might say, well, I just believe it and it's my little thing, but everyone talks about their beliefs. It's like someone who's like a secret misogynist. Well, they're not really, because it's kind of going to show through when they interact with women, or somebody's secretly racist. They're gonna
directly or indirectly.
It's gonna come through. Yeah. But so that's his justification. But I would say, well, regardless of whether it comes out or not, regardless of the consequence, it's a self to self relationship before it's a self to other people relationship. It's being honest with yourself and having sort of that, like we talked about, moral courage to seek out facts and not just hide away in a corner. So I think being skeptical is more about a more. I'd even use the word spiritual. Kind of tentatively, but it's about a relationship with oneself where you take moral courage to go out there and seek facts and not like hide away and get the easy answers. I think it's about kind of fostering that attitude. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, it's a good point, because like I feel like a lot of the reasons people believe in conspiracy theories, I think, is not necessarily that they've evaluated all the evidence and they've arrived at a conclusion that's ultimately wrong. It's just that, as we were kind of saying before about the whole echo chamber thing, it's like they've, for a multitude of reasons, they've decided they're going to believe something, but it's not through fact. It's through some other channel, and then they kind of dig themselves into a rut.
Yeah, they will stop at nothing.
Yeah. I absolutely.
Or being red-pilled.
It's getting. I think ultimately you'd never understand unless you put yourself in those people's shoes, and you can sort of. You can only see the reasons why you would believe some particular thing, and kind of you can't understand why somebody would do something if you don't at least kind of get the concept of that yourself. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, you're on about like exercising empathy.
Basically, yeah. So like, if you can't put yourself in that person's shoes, and you can't understand why they would do something, then. Like you're not going to be able to relate that to yourself.
Yeah, and I think you can't have a debate with somebody who you don't consider an equal and who you don't consider their position to be valid.
Yeah,
because otherwise it's like, so this is what everyone does on Twitter at the moment. If you don't agree with me, you're a racist, or if you don't agree with me, you're a snowflake. So straight away you devalue the position,
and also don't solve the argument at all.
Well, yeah,
just resorting to insults. It's like.
Yeah,
the substance of whatever you're talking about before is no longer relevant.
Because I think a big turning point for me was when I was kind of into my atheism, and as I was doing that, I didn't think religion was a legitimate position. I thought it was all smoke and mirrors, and sort of theology was kind of just based on completely false premises, so it was a nonsense field. And that I didn't think all religious people were stupid, but I did think that religious belief was based on false premises. Now I don't necessarily, and I think there are a lot more nuances to it. Yeah, I think religion is a valid position to have. It's not one I agree with, but I think it's much more worthy of dialogue and actually So I found my conversations after that just way more fruitful. Talking to I could talk to people just much more easily and discuss. Where I think disagree with people because of that. I think a lot of people just immediately shut people down because they think, well, your position is invalid. It's like, it's not worthy of debate. And if it is, it's like it's not a real debate. It's more just like shouting at each other. But once you admit that, oh shit, this is a position I disagree with, but I also think it's valid, then you can really get going on a conversation.
Yeah, and like a debate. The thing with the debate is you don't necessarily have to come to a conclusion at the end of it. It's totally fine to have like two people with opposing views chat for an hour and debate and then walk away with their views unchanged.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's probably what happens.
This is the problem that I used to have, where I used to think there always has to be an X or a Y answer to everything.
Yeah.
Well, no, as long as we're questioning things in the long run, answers will be established. Maybe not today. Maybe an answer might not ever be established, but we can develop a society from just learning something new.
Aspect of things on both sides.
Yeah. The old cliche will come away having learned something today that you didn't know.
I mean, just
yesterday.
the practice of conversation is worth it in itself.
It's key, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
I think it's just nice to have a discussion whether you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had what's that thing? It's like a test, and it sorts your personality into one of 16 boxes.
Yeah, I've done this. Yeah,
and I did it fairly recently.
What did you get?
I got debater.
All right,
that's my. So I can't remember the combination.
Mate, I want to sit this now.
Let's do it. Yeah, me and Zach do it.
Is it fairly comprehensive, like a political?
It doesn't take very long. It's a
or?
website. It's basically, it asks you. It just asks you quite a few different questions on like how you would evaluate particular situations or whatever, and then eventually it gives you 4 letters. So the first one is, are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I can't exactly remember the other ones, but there's something like how you judge situations, whether you judge them like critically, logically, or if you're more emotionally and that sort of thing. And then
I think they're divided into subcategories, aren't they? These.
Yes. So you get 4, because you get 4 letters. So you can have a bit of maths here, guys. So 4 letters, 2 options for each. So that is 2 to the power of 4, which is 16. So depending on what you choose, you fall into one of 16 categories.
Oh, I hope I do get empathetic Nazi.
And then
I do feel that one. I do.
Yeah, and then so I think they're like.
But you made up a category.
So there are like 4 main categories. There's a Nazi. No, it's like. I think I was in like the critical thinker analyst type one, which is not too surprising really, and then there's another one which is like kind of social justice, and there's another one which is like adventurer or some shit.
Yeah,
and it's a little bit woolly.
So some of those are like,
I'm intrigued by this.
Some of those 4 things are like just like you're all narcissists, but some of you are like you use your narcissism effectively.
Right?
Kind of
yeah. So
I think I got one of the woolly ones, like live on a cloud. You're nice to people, but I got diplomat.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's a good one.
That's good, yeah.
Like is diplomat or mediator? It's one of those ones.
Yeah, you're in the you're in a different.
I'm in the
thing to
the pussy one.
But anyway, I'd encourage everyone to do it at some point, because it's not like you're absolutely definitely this. But it's a good indicator.
It's a good incentive.
It's a good indicator. It's all free. It's just type in like personality test 16 or something. It'll probably come up.
Yeah.
What house are you on?
What point was I?
What's your favourite colour?
Something about conspiracy theories. Anyway,
yeah.
I think
that's a bit of a deviation.
In the dungeons.
That can be cut out in the edit.
Yeah.
Professor Snape.
Did you hear what I said?
What did you just say?
Like those Harry Potter quizzes, like, what's your favourite colour? Green. You are Slytherin. They're literally that degenerated.
Fucking kill me.
Right, phrenesis wasn't achieved today.
Oh shit, was that on there?
Yes. Right, cheers. We're off to the pub.
So long.
Toy you.